Hello and welcome. Tonight, I invite you to step back in time with me to the turbulent skies of World War II, where bravery knew no bounds and the darkness of night became the battlefield. Close your eyes and let the whispers of history guide you to a world where a group of young Soviet women defied the expectations of their time and soared into the night, striking fear into the hearts of their enemies. These were the Night Witches, an all-female bomber regiment that turned the cover of darkness into their greatest weapon. Imagine the chilling silence of the night, broken only by the faint hum of small, wooden planes, vulnerable and open to the elements, yet piloted by fearless women who risked everything. In these fragile aircraft, the Night Witches carried out hundreds of daring missions, their bombs falling silently from the skies, terrorizing the German soldiers below. They flew without parachutes, in planes that were as old as the conflict itself, using the night to their advantage and turning simplicity into their strength. Tonight, I will whisper to you the tale of these extraordinary women, how they came together, how they trained under impossible conditions, and how they used their courage and ingenuity to outsmart their enemies. You will hear of their first missions, the tactics that earned them their mystical name, and the hardships they endured flying night after night. We will explore the challenges they faced in the skies, from navigating in darkness to dodging enemy fire, and how they transformed fear into a powerful weapon of psychological warfare. But this story is not only one of bravery, it is also one of loss, perseverance, and a relentless fight for recognition. The Night Witches, despite their heroism, faced challenges not just from the enemy but from within their own ranks and society. Yet, they left an indelible mark on history, proving that courage knows no gender and that even in the darkest times, there are those who rise to become legends. So, find a comfortable place, relax, and let my voice take you on a journey through the skies with the Night Witches, women who, despite all odds, dared to soar into the night and became the unsung heroes of World War II. The birth of the Night Witches, the formation of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. The story of the Night Witches begins in the early years of World War II, as the Soviet Union found itself fighting for survival against the advancing German forces. In a time of desperation, the Soviet military was willing to try unconventional strategies, and one of the most groundbreaking was the decision to form an all-female bomber regiment. This bold move was initiated by Marina Raskova, a renowned Soviet pilot often referred to as the Soviet Amelia Earhart. Raskova was determined to prove that women could serve on the front lines, and her vision led to the creation of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, later known as the Night Witches. In 1941, Marina Raskova petitioned Joseph Stalin to allow the formation of female combat units. She argued that the Soviet Union needed every available resource to repel the Nazi invasion, and she believed that women, too, could play a vital role. Stalin, recognizing the dire need for more personnel and inspired by Raskova's determination, approved her request. Raskova was tasked with recruiting, training, and leading a group of women pilots, navigators, and mechanics to form a new regiment that would specialize in night bombing missions. The women who answered Raskova's call came from all walks of life. Many were young, some as young as 17, and most had little to no flying experience. They were students, factory workers, and even musicians who had volunteered to defend their homeland. These women were united by a common cause and a shared determination to fight for their country, despite the challenges and prejudices they would face. The training process was intense and grueling, designed to transform these volunteers into capable pilots and navigators in a very short time. Marina Raskova's leadership and vision were critical in shaping the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. She ensured that the women received the same training as their male counterparts, flying in the same conditions and with the same expectations. The regiment was given old Polikarpov Pa-2 biplanes, light, simple aircraft originally designed for crop dusting and training. These planes were slow and provided little protection, but they had one advantage: their quiet engines allowed them to glide almost silently over enemy targets, making them perfect for stealth night operations. The women of the 588th would soon learn how to use the strengths of these planes to their advantage, developing the tactics that would earn them their legendary nickname. Training for the Night Witches was both physically and mentally demanding. The women learned to navigate in complete darkness, relying only on the stars, compasses, and their instincts to find their way to enemy targets. They trained to fly in tight formations, handle bomb releases, and execute quick maneuvers to evade enemy fire. The women also had to become proficient in maintaining and repairing their aircraft, as they operated under conditions where resources were scarce, and they often had to fix their planes themselves. Despite the hardships, the women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment forged a strong sense of camaraderie and determination. They knew that many doubted their capabilities and that some viewed their mission as little more than a propaganda effort. But these women were determined to prove themselves and show that they could stand alongside the male pilots in defending their country. They took pride in their work, knowing that every mission they flew brought them one step closer to protecting their homeland from the invading forces. By 1942, the regiment was ready for combat, and the women took to the skies under the cover of darkness. Their initial missions were modest, targeting enemy supply depots, artillery positions, and encampments. These first sorties tested their courage and skill, but as they gained experience, the Night Witches became increasingly effective, using their stealth tactics to terrorize the German soldiers below. It was during these early missions that the regiment began to build its reputation as a formidable force, striking fear into the hearts of their enemies who came to know them as the Night Witches. The nickname Night Witches was coined by the German soldiers who encountered these daring women. The quiet approach of their biplanes, followed by the sudden dropping of bombs, created a sense of unease and terror among the enemy. The Germans believed the Soviet women possessed supernatural abilities, as they seemed to appear out of nowhere, like witches riding the wind. Little did they know that it was not magic, but the sheer skill and bravery of the women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment that allowed them to carry out their daring missions night after night. The formation of the Night Witches marked a turning point in the role of women in combat. Marina Raskova's vision and leadership, combined with the dedication of the women she recruited, led to the creation of one of the most remarkable units in military history. The Night Witches not only defied gender stereotypes but also proved that women could fight and excel in the most dangerous and demanding conditions. As we move forward in this story, we will explore how these brave women honed their tactics and faced the dangers of the night skies, overcoming enemy fire and navigating through darkness. Their journey was one of courage, sacrifice, and a relentless determination to protect their homeland. Training under fire, preparing the female pilots for combat. The journey of the Night Witches from volunteers to skilled pilots was a challenging one, marked by intense training, determination, and resilience. When Marina Raskova first formed the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, she knew that the women she recruited would need to undergo rigorous preparation to face the dangers of night combat. The training program was designed to be as tough as possible, pushing the women to their limits and transforming them into capable pilots, navigators, and mechanics in a matter of months. The women of the 588th came from diverse backgrounds, most with little to no flying experience. They were students, teachers, and factory workers who had volunteered to defend their homeland. Despite their lack of experience, they shared a fierce determination to prove themselves and fight for their country. Marina Reskova, as their commander, was both an inspiration and a strict mentor, guiding them through the challenges of becoming combat-ready pilots. Training began with the basics of aviation, flying techniques, navigation, and emergency procedures. The women learned to operate the Polikarpov P-2 biplanes, simple and lightweight aircraft that would become their main tool in battle. Although these planes were outdated and lacked the advanced technology of the German aircraft they would soon face, they had one key advantage: their simplicity made them easy to maneuver, and their slow speed allowed them to fly low and quietly under the cover of darkness. The women practiced flying these planes at night, learning to navigate using only the stars and basic instruments, as they would often be without the aid of modern navigation equipment. The training process was not limited to flying. The women also had to become proficient mechanics, learning how to repair and maintain their planes. The Soviet Union's resources were stretched thin, and the night witches often had to rely on their own skills to keep their aircraft in working order. They trained to fix engines, patch up bullet holes, and even improvise parts when necessary. This knowledge proved crucial in the field, where a well-maintained aircraft could mean the difference between life and death. Physical endurance was another critical aspect of their training. The women had to build the stamina required to fly long missions under challenging conditions. The Polikarpov P-2 was an open cockpit aircraft, meaning the pilots were exposed to the elements. They often flew in the freezing night air without the comfort of heated suits or protective gear. The training involved flying in these harsh conditions to acclimate them to the physical demands they would face during combat. The women pushed through exhaustion, cold, and discomfort, proving their resilience and determination to carry out their mission. Beyond the physical challenges, the women faced mental and emotional tests as well. The idea of women participating in combat was still controversial, and some of their male counterparts doubted their abilities, viewing the regiment as a propaganda effort rather than a legitimate combat unit. The women had to confront these prejudices, not only by enduring the rigorous training but by showing their male peers that they were just as capable, if not more so, in the skies. This pressure added an extra layer of motivation for the night witches, as they were determined to prove that they could be as effective as any male pilot. As the training progressed, the women practiced flying in tight formations, dropping bombs accurately, and evading enemy fire. They developed tactics specific to their P-2 aircraft, which required them to fly low and stealthily, using the cover of night to approach enemy targets undetected. The women learned how to shut off their engines mid-flight to glide silently toward their targets before releasing their bombs. This technique minimized the noise their aircraft made, allowing them to approach German encampments undetected, and became one of the most effective tactics they used during combat. Another crucial aspect of their training was building a strong sense of teamwork and trust among the women. The night witches flew in pairs, with one pilot and one navigator in each plane. The navigator was responsible for guiding the pilot through the dark skies and ensuring they reached their targets accurately. This partnership required a deep level of trust, as the success of each mission depended on their ability to work together seamlessly under the most stressful conditions. The women spent hours training together, practicing navigation and bombing drills until they could anticipate each other's movements and needs without speaking a word. Despite the intense training and challenges, the women of the 588th formed a strong bond, united by their shared experiences and determination to protect their country. They supported each other through the grueling process, finding strength in their unity and in the vision that Marina Raskova had set for them. Together, they transformed into a disciplined and capable combat unit, ready to take on the dangers of the night skies. By the time they completed their training, the women were prepared to face the realities of war. They had learned to fly, navigate, and maintain their planes under the most challenging conditions, and they had developed the mental and physical toughness needed for the grueling night missions ahead. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment was no longer a group of volunteers. They were a team of skilled pilots and navigators, ready to prove their worth in battle. The Night Witches' first combat missions would test everything they had learned, as they took to the skies under the cover of darkness, relying on their training and each other to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. As we continue our story, we will explore their early missions and the tactics they used to become one of the most feared and respected bomber regiments of World War II. Old planes, new tactics, the Polikarpov platoon and guerrilla warfare in the sky. The Night Witches' success as a combat unit was not only due to their courage and determination, but also to their ability to adapt and innovate with the resources they had. The aircraft they flew, the Polikarpov platoon biplane, was far from the advanced war machines used by the Germans. Originally designed in the 1920s as a training and crop dusting plane, the platoon was slow, simple, and provided minimal protection for its pilots. However, these very characteristics that seemed like disadvantages became assets in the hands of the Night Witches, who developed creative tactics that turned their seemingly outdated planes into effective tools of guerrilla warfare. The Polikarpov platoon, often referred to as the Kukuruznik, meaning corn duster in Russian, was a lightweight biplane with a maximum speed of just over 90 miles per hour, 145 kilometers per hour. The plane's fabric-covered frame and wooden construction made it vulnerable to enemy fire, and its open cockpit exposed the pilots to the freezing night air. Despite these limitations, the Night Witches learned to use the platoon's simplicity to their advantage. Its slow speed allowed for low-altitude flights, and its lightweight build made it highly maneuverable, enabling the pilots to evade enemy anti-aircraft fire with quick, sharp turns. The true genius of the Night Witches lay in how they utilized the platoon's quiet engines. Unlike the powerful, roaring engines of modern German aircraft, the platoon's engine produced a low hum, and when pilots cut the engines mid-flight, the plane glided almost silently through the night. This tactic, known as cutting the engine, allowed the Night Witches to approach enemy targets undetected, gliding in the darkness like shadows. German soldiers on the ground described the eerie silence of the approaching planes as if witches were flying on broomsticks, a comparison that eventually earned the women their legendary nickname. The Night Witches perfected this technique, flying in groups of 2 or 3 planes during each mission. The lead plane would typically draw the attention of German spotlights and anti-aircraft fire, creating a distraction. Meanwhile, the other planes would glide silently toward their targets, releasing bombs before turning sharply to escape. This coordinated tactic confused the enemy and allowed the Night Witches to strike with precision while minimizing their own exposure to danger. One of the key strengths of the Polikarpov platoon was its ability to take off and land on rough, improvised airstrips. This flexibility allowed the Night Witches to operate from temporary bases close to the front lines. They could move their operations quickly, setting up and breaking down bases as needed, which was crucial for their guerrilla-style warfare. The ability to stay mobile and unpredictable kept the Germans on edge, as they were never sure where or when the night witches would strike next. The lightweight nature of the P-2 also allowed the night witches to perform rapid bombing runs. Although the aircraft could only carry a limited payload, typically 2 or 3 small bombs per mission, the women compensated by flying multiple sorties each night. On some nights, a single pilot might complete up to 8 missions, taking off, dropping bombs, and returning to base to rearm before heading out again. This relentless pace of operations not only maximized the impact of their limited firepower but also contributed to the psychological warfare they waged against the German soldiers, who were constantly on alert for the night witches' sudden, silent attacks. Despite its advantages, flying the P-2 came with significant risks. The plane's slow speed and lack of armor made it an easy target for German fighters and anti-aircraft guns. The night witches had to rely on their skill, quick reflexes, and knowledge of evasive maneuvers to survive. The women practiced flying close to the ground to avoid detection, weaving through enemy fire, and taking advantage of the darkness to mask their movements. The P-2's maneuverability allowed them to perform tight turns and rapid dives, which were critical for evading enemy attacks. The night witches' tactics with the P-2 also require teamwork and precise coordination. Each mission involved a pilot and a navigator working closely together to ensure the success of their sorties. The navigator played a crucial role, using maps and compasses to guide the pilot through the dark skies to the target and back to base. Communication was essential, as they had to work in perfect sync, especially when evading enemy fire or making last-minute course adjustments. The partnership between pilot and navigator was built on trust and training, and the success of their missions depended on this seamless cooperation. The P-2's adaptability also extended to maintenance. The night witches had to be proficient in repairing their planes, often working through the night to patch up damage from enemy fire. The simplicity of the aircraft's design made it easier for the women to perform repairs quickly, using whatever materials were available. This resourcefulness was a testament to their resilience and determination, as they understood that keeping their planes operational was crucial to the success of their regiment. The P-2 may not have been a modern warplane, but it was perfectly suited to the night witches' guerrilla tactics. The women transformed this modest biplane into a formidable weapon through their ingenuity, using its simplicity to outmaneuver and outsmart the enemy. Their ability to adapt and innovate with limited resources was a hallmark of their success, demonstrating that courage, skill, and creativity could overcome even the most challenging circumstances. First missions, testing courage in the dark. The night witches' first combat missions marked a critical moment in the history of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. As the women pilots prepared to fly into enemy territory, they faced both excitement and fear. Their training had equipped them with the skills they needed, but the reality of night combat was something they would only fully understand once they experienced it. These initial sorties tested their courage and abilities, as they had to navigate, attack, and return safely, all while evading enemy fire in the dark. The regiment's first missions targeted German supply depots, artillery positions, and troop encampments. Flying in their Polikarpov P-2 biplanes, the women took advantage of the cover of night, using the quiet engines of their planes to glide silently toward enemy positions. The tactics they had practiced, cutting engines to minimize noise, navigating by the stars, and flying at low altitudes, became crucial in these missions. The silence of their approach, combined with their precision, created an element of surprise, disorienting the German soldiers on the ground. Despite the successful execution of their tactics, these missions were not without challenges. The slow speed and light build of the P-2 made the aircraft vulnerable to anti-aircraft fire and enemy fighters. The pilots had to remain calm and execute evasive maneuvers swiftly, using their knowledge of the terrain and darkness as their shields. The cold, open cockpits added another layer of difficulty, testing their physical endurance as well as their mental focus. The women flew in small groups, often with one plane acting as a decoy to draw enemy fire while others completed the bombing runs. This required precise coordination and trust between the pilots and navigators. The navigators played a vital role, guiding the pilots through unfamiliar and dangerous territories using only the stars and landmarks. Communication was minimal, relying on signals and silent coordination as they approached their targets. Each night, the Night Witches flew multiple sorties, gaining valuable experience and confidence with every mission. They learned how to adjust their tactics based on enemy responses, and their daring attacks began to earn them a fearsome reputation among the German troops. The soldiers started to call them Night Witches, a nickname that reflected both fear and respect for the silent bombers that struck without warning. These first missions were crucial in shaping the regiment's identity. The women proved not only their skills but also their bravery, showing that they could hold their own against the best-trained forces of the enemy. The experiences from these early sorties forged their resolve, and each successful mission was a testament to their courage and teamwork. As they continued their nightly raids, the Night Witches refined their tactics and developed new strategies, becoming an increasingly effective force in the Soviet Air Force. Their initial missions laid the foundation for their growing success and demonstrated the power of determination and skill, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Witches' magic, silent attacks, and psychological warfare. As the Night Witches honed their skills in the dark skies of World War II, their unique tactics became a powerful psychological weapon against the German soldiers. The women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment developed stealth techniques that capitalized on their light and quiet Polikarpov P-2 planes, creating an element of surprise that struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. This tactical ingenuity, combined with their relentless courage, turned the Night Witches into a formidable force, using silence and darkness as their greatest allies. The nickname Night Witches was coined by German soldiers who experienced the eerie approach of the women's planes. The tactic of cutting their engines and gliding silently over targets, often just before dropping their bombs, created a sense of supernatural fear. To the soldiers on the ground, the sudden appearance of the planes felt like a ghostly attack, and the pilot's ability to vanish as quickly as they appeared only amplified this effect. The Germans believed these women had otherworldly abilities, likening them to witches who used the night as their cloak. This reputation became a psychological advantage for the Night Witches. German soldiers, wary of their silent attacks, were often on edge, scanning the skies for signs of the approaching planes. The mere anticipation of their presence disrupted enemy routines, causing anxiety and unease among the troops. The Night Witches turned their enemies' fear into a strategic asset, knowing that the psychological impact of their tactics was as effective as their physical attacks. Their methods also required precision and timing. The pilots coordinated their attacks carefully, often flying in groups where one plane would draw enemy attention by deliberately flying through spotlight beams while the others swooped in from different angles to release their bombs undetected. This approach minimized casualties among the women while maximizing the effectiveness of their missions. The element of surprise was their most powerful tool, allowing them to strike swiftly and retreat before enemy forces could react. However, the silence of their planes came with its own risks. Gliding without engine power left the planes vulnerable, as they lost speed and control during the bombing run. The pilots had to rely on their instincts and quick reflexes to restart their engines and maneuver out of enemy fire once they had released their bombs. The slightest mistake could mean the difference between success and disaster. This delicate balance between stealth and speed required extraordinary skill and courage, but the women embraced the challenge, knowing their tactics were crucial to their effectiveness as a combat unit. The Night Witches' psychological warfare extended beyond the battlefield. Their growing reputation spread through German lines, with stories of their supernatural abilities adding to the myth of their invincibility. The more missions they completed, the more the Germans feared these mysterious attackers who seemed to appear out of nowhere. This fear played into the Soviet military's hands, allowing them to exploit the enemy's anxiety and maintain the upper hand during nighttime operations. Despite the effectiveness of their silent attacks, the Night Witches continued to refine their strategies. They adjusted their flight paths and altitudes to adapt to changing enemy defenses, and they developed new evasive maneuvers to counter the increased threat of anti-aircraft fire. Their willingness to innovate and adapt was key to their success, showing that their strength lay not only in their bravery but also in their tactical ingenuity. By embracing the element of stealth, the Night Witches created a new form of aerial warfare. Their ability to blend fear and precision, using the night to their advantage, was a testament to their skill and determination. As their missions continued, they became not only a physical threat but a symbol of resistance, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there are those who rise to fight with courage and ingenuity. As we move to the next chapter, we will explore the many challenges the Night Witches faced, from harsh weather conditions to the constant danger of enemy fire, and how they persevered against all odds. The challenges of the skies, weather, navigation, and enemy fire. Flying under the cover of darkness, the Night Witches faced not only the enemy but also the unpredictable and often harsh elements of the sky. The Polikarpov P-2 planes they flew were simple and reliable but offered little protection against the extreme conditions encountered during their missions. From freezing temperatures to enemy fire, these brave women had to overcome numerous challenges to complete their sorties night after night. One of the most daunting obstacles was the weather. The open cockpits of the P-2 planes exposed the pilots to freezing cold, especially during winter missions when temperatures could drop well below zero. Dressed in thick layers and bundled in scarves, the women fought the biting cold that made every movement, from handling controls to navigating, a test of endurance. Frostbite was a constant risk, and the icy winds often numbed their hands, making it difficult to maneuver their aircraft. Yet, despite these harsh conditions, the Night Witches pressed on, knowing that their missions were critical to the war effort. Navigating in the dark was another significant challenge. The women relied on basic instruments, maps, and their knowledge of the stars to find their way to and from targets. In the absence of modern navigational technology, pilots and navigators had to develop a keen sense of direction and spatial awareness. The darkness of night, combined with cloud cover or fog, often made visibility minimal, forcing them to rely on instinct and teamwork to stay on course. The smallest error could lead to disorientation, leaving them vulnerable to enemy fire or causing them to miss their targets entirely. In addition to the weather and navigational difficulties, enemy defenses posed a constant threat. German anti-aircraft guns and searchlights scanned the skies, ready to target any approaching aircraft. The P-2's slow speed and low altitude made it an easy target for anti-aircraft fire, and many of the Night Witch's missions required them to fly directly into heavily defended areas. The pilots learned to use evasive maneuvers, quickly changing altitude and direction to dodge enemy fire. These maneuvers, while effective, required precise coordination between the pilot and navigator, testing their skills and trust in one another. German fighter planes were another danger. The P-2, with its wooden frame and fabric covering, was no match for the faster and more heavily armed German fighters. The Night Witch's only defense was their ability to fly low and remain hidden in the darkness. When enemy fighters were spotted, the women often flew close to the ground, using the terrain as cover and attempting to outmaneuver their pursuers. These high-stakes encounters demanded quick thinking and calm nerves, as a single mistake could have devastating consequences. Despite these challenges, the Night Witches developed tactics to minimize their risks. They often flew in groups, with one plane acting as a decoy to draw enemy attention while the others carried out the bombing runs. They also adjusted their flight paths frequently, ensuring that the Germans could not predict their approach. By continuously refining their strategies, they adapted to the dangers they faced, proving that they could match the skill and tenacity of any enemy force. The relentless determination of the Night Witches, combined with their ability to adapt to the challenges of weather, navigation, and enemy fire, allowed them to carry out their missions night after night. Their resilience in the face of such adversity was a testament to their courage and dedication, showing that even the most difficult obstacles could be overcome through skill, teamwork, and a fierce commitment to their cause. As we continue this story, we will explore the personal stories of the brave women who flew these missions, highlighting the heroes of the regiment and their contributions to the Soviet war effort. Heroes of the Soviet Union, the stories of Marina Reskova and her comrades. The Night Witch's legacy is inseparable from the remarkable women who flew its missions, and none were more influential than Marina Reskova, the visionary behind the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. Known as the mother of the Soviet Air Force, Reskova was a trailblazer who paved the way for women pilots during World War II. Her leadership and determination not only established the regiment but inspired generations of women to take to the skies in defense of their country. This chapter highlights her story and the heroic efforts of her comrades who risked everything in the fight against the German invasion. Marina Reskova was already a celebrated aviator before the war began, known for her record-breaking long-distance flights. When the Soviet Union was invaded by Nazi Germany in 1941, she recognized the need for every available resource, including the untapped potential of women pilots. Reskova petitioned Stalin directly to allow the formation of all-female aviation regiments. Her proposal was approved, and she was given the responsibility of forming 3 regiments, including the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, the future Night Witches. Reskova not only recruited the women but also trained them herself, ensuring they received the same rigorous instruction as their male counterparts. She demanded excellence, pushing her recruits to become skilled pilots and navigators. Her vision and leadership transformed a group of volunteers into a disciplined combat unit ready to face the dangers of night missions. Although she did not live to see the full impact of the Night Witches, as she tragically died in a plane crash during the war, her legacy lived on through the bravery and skill of her regiment. Among the pilots who carried forward Reskova's legacy were notable figures like Yevdokia Nikulina and Nadezhda Popova, both of whom became legends within the regiment. Yevdokia Nikulina was one of the most daring pilots of the Night Witches, completing hundreds of missions despite being wounded in action. Her resilience and determination made her a symbol of courage, and she was later awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union for her contributions. Nadezhda Popova, another iconic figure, survived some of the most dangerous missions of the war. Known for her skill and bravery, she often led sorties deep into enemy territory. On one occasion, her plane was hit multiple times by enemy fire, but she managed to land safely and repair the aircraft herself before taking off again. Her ability to remain calm under pressure and her willingness to take risks inspired her comrades, and she too was honored as a hero of the Soviet Union. These women, along with many others in the regiment, flew hundreds of missions, often in the most challenging conditions. Their determination to complete their assignments, regardless of the dangers they faced, demonstrated their deep commitment to the Soviet war effort. The bravery of these pilots not only earned them recognition from their own country but also respect from their enemies. German soldiers, who had once mocked the idea of women pilots, came to fear the Night Witches and the relentless attacks they launched night after night. The camaraderie among the pilots was another crucial element in their success. The women formed strong bonds, supporting each other through the hardships of war. Whether repairing planes together after missions or comforting one another after losses, the solidarity within the regiment became a source of strength. The Night Witches' ability to work as a team, both in the air and on the ground, was vital to their effectiveness and survival. The stories of Marina Raskova, Yevdokia Nikulina, and Nadezhda Popova are just a few examples of the courage and dedication displayed by the women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. Their contributions were recognized with numerous awards, including the title of Hero of the Soviet Union, one of the highest honors in the Soviet military. These awards not only celebrated their individual bravery but also acknowledged the collective achievements of the Night Witches as a symbol of Soviet resilience and strength. As we continue this journey, we will explore the costs of such bravery, delving into the casualties and dangers these women faced as they carried out their missions. Despite the accolades and recognition, the price of their heroism was often high, reminding us of the sacrifices they made in their fight for victory. The price of bravery, casualties, and the dangers of night missions. The courageous missions of the Night Witches were not without heavy risks and sacrifices. Despite their skill and stealth, flying night after night in outdated, unarmored aircraft exposed the women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment to constant danger. The price of their bravery was high, and many paid with their lives as they navigated the hostile skies over enemy territory. This chapter explores the hazards they faced and the toll it took on the regiment. The Polikarpov P-2 biplanes, while effective for stealth attacks, offered little protection. These aircraft were slow, unarmored, and open cockpit, leaving the pilots vulnerable to enemy anti-aircraft fire in harsh weather conditions. The lack of advanced navigation equipment meant the women had to rely on their instincts, maps, and the stars to guide them through the darkness. Any small mistake could lead to disorientation, causing them to miss their targets or lose their way home. Enemy anti-aircraft guns and searchlights were some of the greatest threats the pilots faced. Flying at low altitudes to avoid detection made them more susceptible to enemy fire. Many missions saw planes returning with bullet holes or damage, and not all pilots were fortunate enough to make it back safely. The regiment suffered casualties as pilots were shot down or forced to make emergency landings in enemy-controlled territory where capture or death awaited them. The constant threat of German fighter planes added to the danger. The P-2s, with their slow speed and limited maneuverability, stood little chance against the faster, better-equipped German aircraft. Despite their evasive tactics, the Night Witches occasionally encountered enemy fighters that outmatched their capabilities. In these instances, their only defense was to fly low and fast, hugging the terrain in an attempt to lose their pursuers in the darkness. Beyond enemy action, the harsh environmental conditions also posed a significant threat. The freezing temperatures of night flights in open cockpits exposed the women to frostbite and hypothermia. The pilots wore layers of clothing and wrapped their faces in scarves, but the cold often numbed their hands and faces, making it difficult to operate the controls. Many of them endured these extreme conditions without complaint, fully aware that their mission depended on their resilience and focus. The emotional toll of the missions was as challenging as the physical risks. The women often witnessed the loss of their comrades, either shot down by enemy fire or missing in action. Despite these losses, they had to push forward, maintaining their focus and determination. The camaraderie among the pilots and their shared sense of duty helped them cope with the grief and fear that accompanied each mission. They supported each other, forming a bond that became their greatest strength, but the losses they endured left scars that would last long after the war. The Night Witches' resilience in the face of these dangers demonstrated their extraordinary courage. Even as they faced overwhelming odds, they continued to carry out their missions, night after night, knowing the risks but refusing to back down. Their bravery and sacrifice became symbols of Soviet resilience, inspiring both their comrades and the civilian population. While the losses were heavy, the Night Witches' impact on the war effort was significant. Their relentless bombing campaigns disrupted German supply lines and created chaos among the enemy ranks. Their presence in the skies, despite the constant threat of death, was a testament to their determination to defend their homeland at any cost. As we approach the conclusion of this story, we will explore the recognition and controversy surrounding the Night Witches after the war, examining how their legacy was honored and the challenges they faced in gaining recognition for their contributions. Recognition and controversy, the legacy of the Night Witches. The bravery and achievements of the Night Witches did not go unnoticed during the war. The Soviet Union celebrated these courageous women as heroes, and many pilots from the 588th Night Bomber Regiment received military honors, including the prestigious title of Hero of the Soviet Union. However, despite their undeniable contributions, the legacy of the Night Witches was also marked by controversy and struggles for recognition. As the war ended and the Soviet Union entered a new era, the story of these remarkable women became both celebrated and complicated. Throughout the war, the Night Witches carried out over 23,000 sorties, dropping thousands of tons of bombs on German targets. Their impact on the Eastern Front was significant, disrupting supply lines and damaging enemy morale. The regiment's efforts were recognized with numerous awards, and individual pilots like Nadezhda Popova, Yevdokia Nikulina, and Yevgenia Rudneva were honored for their courage and skill. The regiment itself was eventually renamed the 46th Taman Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment, a prestigious designation that highlighted their status as elite fighters. However, despite these accolades, not all members of the regiment received the recognition they deserved. The Soviet military and society still harbored biases against women in combat roles. Some officials saw the women's participation in the war as a temporary necessity rather than a permanent shift in military policy. As the Soviet Union began to demobilize its military and rebuild after the war, many women were pushed back into traditional roles, and their contributions were gradually downplayed. Some of the night witches faced resistance and discrimination when they sought to continue their careers in aviation or the military. The Soviet state, eager to promote traditional family values and the role of women as homemakers, often overlooked the wartime achievements of these female pilots. This led to a sense of frustration among many veterans who felt that their sacrifices were being minimized or ignored. Even Marina Reskova, despite her hero status, had to fight for the acceptance of her vision, and her legacy, though honored, was not immune to controversy. The struggle for recognition also extended into the broader historical narrative. The Cold War period saw the Soviet Union focus on male war heroes, such as tank commanders and infantry soldiers, while the story of the night witches became less prominent. It wasn't until decades later, when historians and surviving veterans began to share their stories, that the full extent of the regiment's contributions was acknowledged. Public interest in their story grew, and the night witches were gradually restored to their rightful place as heroes of the Soviet Union. Despite the initial challenges, the legacy of the night witches continued to inspire future generations. The regiment's story became a symbol of resilience and courage, showing that women could excel in combat roles and overcome the most difficult obstacles. Their achievements also contributed to the gradual shift in Soviet policies regarding women in the military, as they paved the way for later generations of female pilots and soldiers. Today, the night witches are celebrated as pioneers and heroes, and their story serves as a powerful reminder of the courage and sacrifice of those who fight for their country, regardless of gender. Their legacy remains a testament to the strength and determination of women who refuse to be defined by societal expectations, proving that bravery and skill are not limited by gender. As we conclude our exploration of the night witches, we will look at the broader impact they had on modern military aviation and the ongoing influence of their legacy in today's world. The impact on history: how the night witches shaped modern warfare. The legacy of the night witches extends far beyond the daring missions they flew during World War II. Their courage, innovation, and determination reshaped perceptions of women in combat and left a lasting impact on military aviation and tactics. The experiences of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment not only demonstrated the effectiveness of guerrilla-style aerial warfare but also paved the way for women's greater involvement in military roles worldwide. The night witches' use of stealth and surprise tactics highlighted the effectiveness of psychological warfare in modern combat. Their ability to exploit the advantages of their slow, quiet Polikarpov P-2 aircraft demonstrated that unconventional methods could achieve success even against technologically superior enemies. The fear they instilled in German soldiers was as powerful as the physical damage they inflicted, showing that disrupting enemy morale could be just as impactful as direct attacks. This approach influenced later guerrilla tactics and night combat strategies, proving that ingenuity and adaptability are key elements in any successful military campaign. The women of the night witches also set a precedent for female involvement in combat aviation. Before their formation, the idea of women participating in active combat roles, particularly as pilots, was met with skepticism. The night witches shattered these stereotypes, proving that women could be as effective as men in the most dangerous and demanding conditions. Their achievements during the war inspired subsequent generations of female pilots and soldiers, both within the Soviet Union and globally. The courage and skill they displayed became a symbol of progress, challenging traditional gender roles and opening doors for women in military careers. In the decades following World War II, the Soviet Union and other nations began to integrate women more fully into their armed forces. The Night Witch's legacy influenced Soviet military policies, leading to the formation of female training programs and greater opportunities for women in aviation. Today, the impact of their achievements is evident in the growing number of women who serve as pilots, soldiers, and leaders within military organizations worldwide. The Night Witch's story continues to inspire and remind us that courage and determination know no gender. The influence of the Night Witches can also be seen in popular culture, where their story has been celebrated in books, documentaries, and films. The myth and reality of these brave women have merged, creating a powerful narrative of resilience and heroism that continues to captivate audiences. The Night Witches have become a symbol of strength, representing the ability to rise above fear and adversity and to fight for what one believes in, no matter the odds. As we conclude this journey through the story of the Night Witches, we reflect on the courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice that define this extraordinary group of women. Their impact on history is not just in the battles they fought, but in the barriers they broke and the legacy they left behind, a legacy that reminds us of the power of determination and the importance of fighting for equality. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of the Night Witches. I hope their story has inspired you as much as it has inspired me. If you enjoyed this exploration into their bravery and legacy, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel for more whispered tales of history. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and feel free to share any topics you'd like to explore in the future. Until next time, may these stories remind you of the strength and courage that lie within us all.